Hello and welcome to Newsmax Now. I'm John Bachman. Thanks for joining us for this Wednesday evening. We begin tonight with brand new information on that much anticipated report coming from the Justice Department's Inspector General. Michael Horowitz, the DOJ's IG, has found that former FBI Director James Comey defied authority more than once while he ran the Bureau. ABC News reports that Horowitz used the word insubordinate when describing Comey's behavior while on the Hillary Clinton email investigation. The report also says that Comey ignored objections from DOJ officials that reopening the investigation didn't jibe with the agency's policy not to impact important elections. The report also hits Comey for not consulting with former Attorney General Loretta Lynch or other senior DOJ officials before his infamous televised news conference in July of 2016, where he announced that the FBI would not be bringing charges against Clinton. Horowitz's report also criticizes Lynch for her actions overseeing the investigation into Clinton's email server, and it calls out Comey and former Deputy FBI Director Andrew McCabe for moving too slowly once some of Hillary Clinton's emails were discovered on the laptop of Anthony Weiner. It's not clear when Horowitz will formally release his official findings. This ABC News report cites two sources who have seen a draft of the IG's report. Here to weigh in on this is former NYPD Detective Bo Dietl and TV host and author Michael Malice. Gentlemen, thanks for being with us tonight.
Hey, John.
Thank you.
All right, as always, we encourage the audience to participate in the conversation as well. You can give us a call at 877-NEWSMAX if you would like to weigh in on anything we discussed tonight. Bo, first to you. We already knew James Comey was somewhat of a maverick, playing by his own rules. Now, if this ABC News report does hold up, does this really change anything for him?
You know, it's very simple. Like even in New York City, what we're facing right now with Harvey Weinstein, you got the district attorney, the police department, and I talked to the detectives that were involved. They wanted to arrest Harvey Weinstein months ago, but the DA's office wouldn't let them go and arrest him when he was over in Arizona. This is the same thing with Comey. Comey's the FBI director. Loretta Lynch was the attorney general. He shouldn't be making that determination. The U.S. attorney is supposed to make that determination about if they had enough to go after Hillary or not. And it's so obvious that Comey overstepped his bounds being the FBI director. He's like the cop. She's the lawyer. She's the one that makes the decision, Loretta Lynch, not Comey. And I think more and more is going to come out. And then as we learn more and more for the Inspector General, I think we're going to learn about what went on prior to this also with some of the with the deputy FBI director and all these other ones that were involved with the investigation, including our friend there that didn't want Donald Trump to be elected president, and they had a safeguard if he did get elected. They wanted to start an investigation. This really stinks. I'm glad the IG is coming out. I got a lot of respect. People don't trust him. I trust that IG. I think he's going to come out and surprise a lot of people. He's a professional, and I think it's going to come out about what went wrong, what went on with the Attorney General and with the FBI.
Michael, the president has been wondering what's taking so long for this report to come out. It's been delayed several times. Based on what we're learning from this ABC News report, do you think this changes anything for Comey?
Oh, I think it changes a lot for Comey. It's just amazing to me how the Democrats, at one point wanted to have him crucified because in their mind he cost Hillary Clinton the election. And as soon as he spits in the president's face, all of a sudden he's been beatified and he's incapable of being dishonest and no higher loyalty and all that, even though his whole loyalty is to keeping his counsel until he gets a good book deal and goes on a book tour. I think what it's going to disgust people, especially in the center who don't really pay that much attention to politics, is just how much wheeling and dealing and chicanery there is behind the scenes. I think Americans think that people try to play by the book, especially the FBI, and they're decent law-abiding people and they're nonpartisan and they don't have their personal preferences play into things. And as more and more of this stuff gets uncovered, it's quite obvious that the inverse is true and that people are operating with their own agendas, political and partisan and otherwise.
All right, let's talk about Rudy Giuliani, who is currently in Israel. He called out Robert Mueller again today, saying the special counsel squad is trying to gin up charges against the president.
They are a group of 13 highly partisan Democrats that make up the Mueller team, excluding him, are trying very, very hard to frame him, to get him in trouble when he hasn't done anything wrong. They can't emotionally come to grips with the fact that this whole thing of Russian collusion didn't happen, right? That they're trying to invent theories of obstruction of justice. The president fired the FBI director. The president has the right to fire the FBI director. The president should have fired the FBI director. He was a terrible FBI director.
There's been no official word yet from the White House or from Mueller on Giuliani's theory here. But, Bo, we've talked about this before. Giuliani kind of freelancing here on some of these Q&A sessions. Do you think he should rein it in a little bit until we know more about what Robert Mueller is actually going to do?
Well, we know one thing. I think 16 of the operatives that are working with Mueller are Democrats. I mean, the agenda is out there, and that's what Rudy Giuliani's jumping on top. And I got to preface something right now. I know a lot of FBI agents. Jim Fox was one of my best friends, the former assistant director of the FBI New York office. You got great FBI agents. Their stomachs are coming out, and they're regurgitating what this Comey has done and put this dirt in the face of the FBI. The FBI is a great institution. This is not the FBI. What this is are these few leaders that are partisan people that wanted to take Trump out, and we got to cut that cancer out of there. You can't defy every FBI agent and put the broad stroke saying that all FBI guys are bad. They're good men and women, and they put their hearts and soul, and their stomachs are coming out with this Comey and this other assistant director of the FBI. This is disgraceful. We should cut the cancer out, and we should honor our FBI because they are not involved. The day-to-day hard-working FBI agents, we should show our support because the one's on top, and we know where the cancer is, and we got to cut it out.
I'm not so sure if it's a partisan thing as much as it is these lifelong Washington, D.C. Bureaucrats who think they know better than the rest of us. Now, it would seem like this would give President Trump what he needs to clearly make the case that Comey needed to go, but he also tied that Russia investigation, albeit in a very roundabout way, to firing Comey during that interview with NBC News' Lester Holt. And, Michael, it's kind of a shame because had he not said that, this would be a pretty cut-and-dried situation. Comey was bad. He needed to go.
Well, I think Giuliani's doing a good job in the sense that it's a very effective political technique to go after to kill the messenger. We remember how much Clinton and his goons went after Kenneth Starr in the 90s and tried to make it seem that President Clinton did nothing wrong, even though he was clearly obvious guilty of obstruction of justice and perjury in the eyes of many Americans. So Giuliani's doing a good job in muddying the waters, and I think he's right. I mean, again, this investigation is so open-ended. They're just trying to get a head on a platter, no matter what the cost. And at a certain point, it has to be enough is enough. You are supposed to have some kind of limited scope and not just go digging until you find some dirt, which is you're going to find inevitably in any political campaign just by the nature of politics. I
mean, some of the professionals who are constitutional lawyers actually said there's no scope here. I mean, what was the directive of Mueller? Was the directive to find about the Russian collusion? After that, he's going off on a tangent. He'll be looking at Trump's real estate holdings back in 2006. We've got to have a special prosecutor that's going to be a special prosecutor on a certain issue. You have to have a scope of investigation. You can't just keep on going, because eventually if you keep on going, you will find something. And if I keep on going to investigate somebody, I'll find something. Enough is enough, and I think America's getting sick and tired of this investigation, sick and tired of Mueller. What do you got? Let's see what you got. And let's go on with America. There are more important things. We got Korea. We got our economies is soaring great. Unemployment for blacks and Hispanics is all-time low. There's jobs available. America's doing great. But the president has to keep focusing on Mueller. Enough is enough.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about the upcoming North Korea summit a little bit. I wanted to move on to that. Giuliani also weighed in on that today, that one between President Trump and Kim Jong-un. Maybe you've heard about it. Specifically, right after it was canceled, take a listen to what Giuliani had to say.
Well, somehow, North Korea, after he canceled the summit because they insulted the vice president, they insulted his national security advisor, and they also said they were going to go to nuclear war against us. They were going to defeat us in a nuclear war. We said, well, we're not going to have a summit under those circumstances. Well, Kim Jong-un got back on his hands and knees and begged for it, which is exactly the position you want to put him in.
I don't know, Michael, was he being literal or figurative there when his discussion or description of Kim Jong-un?
Listen, if you can't pronounce Kim Jong-un's name correctly, maybe you shouldn't be opining on North Korea. I think his comments were disgusting and absolutely reprehensible in the context of this summit, because a lot of what we want North Korea to do is in the context of having them save face publicly in order to privately do what we need them to do. If he has to look like the good guy in the face of the world, as long as he's denuclearizing and freeing people from the concentration camps, that's fine. So to humiliate him and say he's begging and pleading. That serves no purpose other than forcing him to dig in his heels. And the North Korean regime has been dug in for 70 years. They're dug in very, very well. They literally have the deepest metro system in the world in terms of depth. So it's very, very counterproductive, and Giuliani should stick to his beat and what he knows about.
You know, John.
Right. He's president. But hold on one second. He's President Trump's lawyer, not the Secretary of State, which brings me to some of the delegation that are going to be around President Trump when he does go to Singapore. And contrary to media reports, John Bolton has not been sidelined. Kellyanne Conway saying today that the National Security Advisor is, in fact, part of these discussions. Conway admits that Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has taken the lead in negotiations, but Bolton is still in the picture. And guess who else will be in Singapore for the June 12th summit? That's right, former NBA star Dennis Rodman. Now, Michael, you know, you've written books about North Korea. You know the history of Dennis Rodman here. What do you make of Rodman coming along on this trip?
I don't think it's very clear that he has some kind of official capacity. If anything, if someone has Kim Jong-un's cell phone number, that's not going to be necessarily a bad thing to have him there. And already this is a little bit of an absurd circus, but the most important thing to always keep our eyes on is the plight of the North Korean people. These are 25 million hostages, 25 million slaves. President Trump got 3 hostages out, American hostages. We have 25 million to go. So I think what I fight very much, and what I was fighting with my book on this subject, is the media's attempt, the corporate press especially, to make North Korea into some sort of carnival and a laughingstock, where in fact they're the most evil country on earth.
You know,
you're so right.
You're so right. But as far as I'm concerned, I don't trust him. I didn't trust him before. He could be playing it. He's the one that killed about 350 of his generals and his own relatives. This man, I don't trust.
Bo, we got more coming up. Hold your thought. We got to run to a commercial break. We got more to come. Bo and Michael are coming right back. Also, Bill O'Reilly gives us his take on the top headlines, including Trump canceling the visit with the Philadelphia Eagles, and much more. Stay tuned. And welcome back to Newsmax Now. I'm a follow-up to our report from yesterday on the new scrutiny aimed directly at Facebook and its founder, Mark Zuckerberg. We told you about the social network sharing user data with mobile device makers. Now, members of Congress are starting to wonder if Zuckerberg was misleading all of us at his hearing on users' privacy, especially since 2 of those device makers with whom Facebook shared user data are Huawei and ZTE, Chinese companies long branded as national security risks to the U.S. A lot of Americans are just now starting to hear about Chinese telecom giants ZTE and Huawei. ZTE has been discussed as a key and controversial element of President Trump's ongoing trade talks with China.
For the ones that say, oh, gee, maybe Trump is getting a little bit easy, ZTE, we closed it. It wasn't another administration. It was this administration.
As for Huawei, more lawmakers from both sides of the aisle are now questioning their relationship with Facebook. The New York Times reports they are just 2 of 4 Chinese companies that had data sharing deals with Facebook that Facebook users didn't know about. According to the Times, quote, the deals were part of an effort to push more mobile users onto the social network starting in 2007, before standalone Facebook apps worked well on these phones. By all accounts, these types of agreements were pretty common when they were first established. Still, more lawmakers now want to know why Facebook users weren't properly notified, and if Mark Zuckerberg was completely upfront with Congress during his April testimony about sharing data with third app developers like Cambridge Analytica.
But one of the big lessons that we've learned here is that clearly we cannot just take developers' word for it. We need to go and enforce them. Okay.
As for Huawei and ZTE, Facebook and everybody else was warned about the dangers. Dangers Facebook seems to have ignored while trying to expand its business into the Chinese market. Back in 2012, the House Intel Committee released a damning report on both Huawei and ZTE, saying regulators should block the 2 companies from merging or acquiring American-owned companies because both pose a national security threat. The report also said China, through these companies, could use the telecom giants for malicious purposes.
We recommend that private network providers find other vendors. Government systems and contractors should also exclude these companies' products as well.
We already know the Chinese are aggressively hacking into our nation's networks, threatening our critical infrastructure, and stealing millions of dollars worth of trade secrets and other sensitive information from American companies. In fact, the United States Cyber Command estimates over $300 billion worth of trade secrets are stolen every year in the United States.
Now, 6 years later, Senator Marco Rubio asking via Twitter, why didn't Facebook just reveal this data sharing deal with Huawei months ago? And don't compare these deals with other telecoms. South Korean government doesn't control or use Samsung the way China controls and uses Huawei. Also, Senators John Thune and Bill Nelson are giving Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook a couple of weeks to respond to these new allegations and to prove they didn't violate an agreement with Congress to do a better job of protecting users' data and privacy. All right, Michael Bodito back with us. Michael Malice and Bodito. Michael, first to you. Do you think Facebook is leveraging our user data to try and gain market share inside China?
I mean, come on, that's the most softball question you could have possibly asked. They only care about their money. I mean, there's not even a pretense that Facebook is trying to be fair and objective. I mean, they very blatantly are trying to rig their algorithms to have viewpoints that they don't approve of being representative. And frankly, it's pretty demented that Facebook is trying to cozy up far more to the Chinese government than to President Trump and his administration, if you want to look at it that way.
Well, there was a report 6 years ago that said American companies shouldn't do business with Huawei. They shouldn't do business with ZTE. Yet here we are. Mark Zuckerberg obviously didn't heed that warning. What's it going to take to get through to these guys?
All I know is I watched the congressional hearings, and Mark Zuckerberg was like a superstar there. All these congressmen and senators, they were afraid to give him softball questions. All they're looking at is how much he's worth, how much he's going to contribute to their campaigns. Let me tell you about it. We have an F-35 fighter. We have all our military equipment have been knocked off by China. You put the F-35 as symbol on the Chinese new fighter, it's exactly the same. They've gone into all our technologies, and they're stealing over $300 billion a year in technology. And all they're going to do now, if they're going to let them utilize our iPhones and all that kind of stuff, they'll be just taking all the information they want. Look, let's be real about one thing. They've been destroying us with our intellectual property, and it ain't going to stop with anything else that they're involved in. Let's stop the crap.
I went back and watched the testimony, especially in the House with Mark Zuckerberg, and a lot of the Republican congressmen were more concerned about the censorship on Facebook, which is a legitimate concern, but we're talking about national security interests here, Michael.
Yeah, I mean, this is where it gets kind of really shady, where it gets outside the realm of, banning diamond and silk. If you want to compare who is more important to the security of America and just the world scene, is it diamond and silk, or as both said, things like military secrets and so on and so forth? Because Facebook is so pervasive, if it's able to be exploited by the Chinese as some sort of backdoor to get information, it's very, very dangerous, and this is a very slippery slope. And the fact is, companies like this, and Google is another one, have no problems kowtowing to foreign governments and just following their edicts. I mean, that's just kind of their corporate motto, and it leads to some very dark consequences.
In China, people don't realize China with the CCP, the Communist China Party there.
Yeah,
they have a thought process. There was, I believe, 70 million people were killed, starved, and beaten to death. A lot of people don't remember that. More people than were killed in World War I and World War II. Point is, this is not a society that is going to go along with things that are going to be helpful to us.
Yeah, just this month we celebrate the anniversary of the Tiananmen Square massacre. That is another issue that a lot of people have forgotten about. China's not our friend. Bo, Michael, thank you for being here with us today. It's great to see you both. We look forward to having you both back real soon.
Thank you.